I want to know the truth, even if it's different from what I think it is right now. I want to know the truth about my own soul, even if it's hard to look at, because you will look at it and you will see it energetically. So you will see the darkness within yourself. And one of the great things about this is one of the reasons why it accelerates us is, we can spend 20 or 30 years having bad habits, right? But if we are taken into the energy of that and see it and experience it and feel it, we come back from that. We have this remorse and we have this understanding of it. And we can change it a lot quicker. You can do in a couple of weeks what you could spend 20, 30 years, going over and arguing with yourself about, if you actually get into the energetic truth of it.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master Sun Qing, and I've been welcoming this conversation. I'm always intrigued and curious about the insight to the paranormal, the supernatural, a greater sense of knowing when you're able to tap into this universal intelligence. And if you can't, then you're on the right podcast today. My guest is an incredible experiencer and master of the state of now, which comes in the form of astral projection, out-of-body experiences, and has an extensive experience in also documenting and creating a go-to 27-book exploration of these very states of awareness. I want to welcome to the podcast Marilynn Hughes. Welcome, my dear friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and this is the fundamental curiosity that most people take on, and they want to explore more and inquire about this phenomenon, this fleeting moment. I felt like I was out of my body. I saw grandma. I had a vision. It's extensive. I call it sensory perception. When you go over the lens of that, clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling. There's so much to explore. Why don't we start with just a little bit about yourself, how we got to this point today?
Well, okay. And, so I've been doing this now for about 40 years. I'm just shy of 60 now. And I started this when I was about 20, but I had my first really amazing experience when I was about 9 years old. And I detail this in all my books, and I have a lot of books on out-of-body travel. Started writing them, in my early 20s. And so it began with this amazing vision when I was 9 years old, where I was lying in bed, and the clouds, I'm lying in bed in a bedroom, but literally clouds began to swirl all around me. And it parted to reveal this beautiful marble staircase, which led to heaven. And there were angels on either side of that staircase. And it was just so spectacular and beautiful. And then up at the top were two thrones. And what I perceived to be God the Father and God the Son. And they directed me through this beautiful experience wherein I was shown that there was something that I had agreed to do in this lifetime, and that it was going to be a little bit difficult. I was going to have challenges, but that I would need to do this. It would come back to me a little bit later in life. But I was shown this foreshadowing and shown some other things that would come to pass later. And then, so when I was around the age of 20 and 22, I think, is when I actually had the first conscious out-of-body experience. In my adulthood, I had this begin, the phenomenon where it just started happening. I started journaling the experiences, and I quickly started realizing that there was a lot more to out-of-body travel than what we've heard about. And I felt that it was very important to keep journaling. And as I did, I discovered these pathways. And I continued writing. My first book was released by Hampton Roads Publishing, and I believe it was 1990 or 91. And the second, the following year. And I began putting together this comprehensive understanding of this journey of the soul as it unfolds through out-of-body travel. And now years later, I have a producer who helped us to put together a film outlining the grand phases of the soul, which is outlined in my book, The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And we outlined those phases in that film as well, to kind of help people realize this is not just you're bopping out of your body and seeing grandma, or having these little miniature experiences. Out of body travel.
Marilynn, are you there?
Yes, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Probably the internet. But you start going into higher realms fairly quickly. So you move through the astral realms, which are an overlap of the third dimensional realm. They're fourth dimensional. So the astral realms are, as many people know, are a little sketchy, But you start seeing that there are corridors in those realms that take you into different places. So you have corridors that take you forward and backward in time. That's where you start learning about your past lives. There are corridors that take you, I call them mystery corridors. They take you into the initiations, into the mysteries and rites of passage. There are corridors that take you into the creation realms, which have a lot to do with what is our personal destiny as it comes to vocation in life. So it's not just like if you have a creative vocation, it's also people who have vocations in science or mathematics or administration or politics or whatever they're called to. These creation realms are where we put it all together and bring it from heaven to earth. And there's all these other realms. And you start going to these higher spheres, and you're still only on the outskirts of what is possible at that point, literally just on the outskirts, because it opens up into this huge cosmology of what those worlds are beyond what we know as death, but what really is the spiritual cosmology that exists beyond the physical world, which is infinite and massive. And so this is where it's hard for people to conceptualize. But what happens when they do start reading my books is they start seeing and they start map making in their own mind. They start realizing that all these things, and part of it also is they start remembering, And sometimes with a lot of people, they start having these experiences spontaneously, and they start moving into that spiritual transformation, that which is a process, that is a movement that we want to be in this lifetime. We don't want to be stationary. We want this lifetime to have spiritual meaning, because there's a reason why it is a mortal lifetime, why it is temporary and transient. We come here to achieve something of a spiritual nature to propel us further, so that when we leave, we are able to take another step further on that spiritual journey. And we oftentimes miss that because we are so grounded and physical here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you had me at hello, and there was some there's certain aspects of what you speak of. It's like the wisdom teaching that I share which is founded in Taoism. I'm an ordained priest in 2 lineages of Taoism. So, the fundamental lens of reality for any Taoist is a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find the center point. And when you find that center point, you access what you may refer to as a ethereal state, the ether, unified. This is a unified state, a vesicle, where possibilities are materialized instantaneously. But for a Taoist, we take the immortality and crystallize it into material, which is furthermore evidence of what is this beyond the beyond that most people conceptualize in their mind but are unable to obtain it until they come across wisdom, teaching, and mastery like yourself, where you can step beyond this mortality and realize this is just the beginning, which we refer to as the yang evidence. So everything is yin and yang. Yin is the absorption of all colors. Yang is the emission of all colors. And that's it. That's the dualistic aspects of this humanistic experience, which is just the starting seed of something greater. And when they come across your teaching, all of a sudden they go, holy shit. Now there's potential that the mundane reality is no longer the only pill they have to swallow, or the fact that they look at their flesh and blood as we are at the end of the road. No, it's just the beginning. And that's where teaching like yours becomes so incredibly enriching, that people have the ability to master that state. And then, as you say, you're going beyond this. Within a Taoist, if we're doing spirit projection, you create a vibratory state. The physical body shows evidence of that. You will merge with this unified state, and the physical body will be left in this material, and you will enter and pierce the veil of this universe, and there is this phosphorus white light that is exhibited, and then it goes back into void. And for a Taoist, you're able to enter off as you find the center point of these two polarizing energies. You can enter off into infinite possibility. And this keeps going back into the bellows effect, contracting and expanding, that shows in material and then furthermore beyond. How does that sound to you? Anything like anything you've experienced?
Well, very much so, actually. And, ironically, one of the books in the new series is called The Tao of Mysticism. And it compares, Taoism to the experiences and teachings that I've had throughout the years. But the vibration is something that is extremely pivotal in the experiences that I've had. And one of the things I say is very common, I repeat it over and over because it's so important, is that knowledge is not information, it is vibration and frequency. And so if we want to achieve higher states of knowledge, we have to go into these vibrational states and allow ourselves to have that vibration and frequency raised to higher levels. And that's, otherwise we don't actually contain higher knowledge and wisdom. It has to be vibration and frequency. So absolutely. And one of the differences, it might be in our terminology about, like you're talking about contracting and expanding. And I use the word emanation a lot. Because what I experience in the out-of-body travel state is that you have these divine emanations and you have these other things that contract, and divine contractions as well. And so I use the word emanation, and I use the eons. I use those words as to what I see and experience in these out-of-body travel experiences, and how I see them. And, so that's my descriptive words. But it's very much the same as to what I feel that you're saying. Even when you were talking about the way you described the yin and the yang having to do with the color in and out. In the out-of-body travel experiences, one of the books in the series is Understanding Auras. Part of the reason I put a lot of energy into that book is because in the out-of-body travel states, there is a huge amount of emphasis on color. And when you experience other spirits or entities or even your own, there is an emanation that comes from you, from them, that is color, which tells you from whence they come, from whom they come. And it tells you a lot about what is going on. A lot of times, like if you have a really high teacher coming to you, they're going to have certain types of really high vibrational colors. But you also have, on the other side of this, if you have dark forces or demonic forces, they have certain colors. And so the understanding of color and how it manifests in the mystical spheres is really important because, one of the mystics that I reference a lot in my works is Emanuel Swedenborg, who lived in the, I believe it was the 1600s or the 1700s. And he talked a lot about, and I mention this a lot as well, that when we cross over and when we are in the out-of-body travel states, we are energetically who we really are. We are seen as what we really are. We do not have the masks. Sometimes we still carry masks like in realms like the astral realm and other realms that are of a lower order. But as you travel and you are actually trying to attain to higher wisdom and knowledge, you are not able to mask things, and things are what they are. Whereas like in the physical realm, people can be one thing on the outside and an entirely different thing on the inside. Whereas in the mystical, in the spiritual sphere, what we really are interiorly is visible exteriorly. And it often expresses itself in color. It expresses itself in other ways as well. But when you mentioned all this color, it reminded me, why I had put so much energy into that particular book, because color is so important in the out-of-body travel experiences. And one of the reasons, people who have near-death experiences are always talking about, oh, the colors, they were so brilliant. They were colors we don't have here on Earth. It's because that's, this is an expression of what, how important the color is in these spheres of existence. It's a different expression than what we have here. And it is so important because it is an identifying factor. It's like vibration and frequency, and color is as well. And so a lot of the things you were talking about resonate very much with, we may use a different word, but it's like, yeah, that's exactly the same. You know what I mean? We're going in the same direction in that. So yes, very much so.
Yeah, no, it's exciting when you see this you have an epiphany, self-realization, your Sherlock to your Watson, elementary, my dear Watson. And you start to merge with this intelligence that is truly unified, and you just know,
Yes.
It's not a transitory delusion. The substance, the plasma that there can be evidence of this sort of vibratory state that for us, I could really water this down to a little bit of a lens of a dash of physics. Let's just say light to wave to matter to particle, realized by your intention, cutting from the cloth of perfection, which is the primordial mother. You create this currency. The currency in this realm is polarizing. That currency is energy potential, and that energy potential is vibratory, frequential. Yeah. And if met with a resonance, oh yes, it will be yours, or yes, it will. This is a mastery of being able to obtain and hold that resonance so that you can now admit and furthermore show evidence of this within a material state by going, oh, okay, what is that? You find that primordial evidence through breath in and breath out, and the center point is where you hold that breath and you create what we call the diamond of perfection. You concentrate that energy, you absorb the riches of that, and it saturates and transmits through the subatomic level. And now you have dominion over the 50 trillion cells of your physical flesh. Now you're up to the races. Now you can sink your teeth into all this stuff. I think it's so important that you have put all this incredible attention and mastery and wisdom teaching to all your teaching and your writings through these books to help people make sense of what it is they're experiencing, and it's not some transitory state of delusion.
Right. I think that is ironically part of what I was, expected to do, is to almost codify it in a sense, you know what I mean? So that those who are willing to take the time, do the work, read it enough, it comes together for them. And I know there's quite a body of work, so a lot of people might be too much, but if you start with some of the beginning books, you can actually get pretty far with even just one or two of the books. And then I do have a lot of people who are junkies, and they'll read everything, and they come out and they they're my mystical theologians, you know what I mean? So they're right on board. But it's really important. I totally agree with what you're saying, because a lot of times people miss the importance of the event and the importance of the continuity of the events. That these are opportunities that are given to us in the spiritual realm to assist us in achieving what we incarnated here to achieve. And for those of us who do, I believe in reincarnation, didn't before I had these experiences, but learned through them to believe otherwise. And in the book in the series called Reincarnation Unveiled, I share a few of the experiences I had when I was like, well, how important is it? Can we just not worry about this? Because I really don't want to take the flack for this. And I had these amazing, beautiful visions where the mysteries of it were, unfolded before me, and how important it was that people understood it. You know what I mean? And so what it is it's helping people to recognize that when we continue to recycle and do these lifetimes over and over, which a lot of us do, then we end up not progressing. And we want to stop that. And we have the ability to actually just stop that and say, and there's a few little things we can do, whether you actually have out-of-body experiences or not. You can learn what you can do to actually change what you're doing in this lifetime so that you are moving towards what I call the birth point, which is that when you reach the end of this life, that you can birth point into the next level of spiritual development instead of doing the circling, the karmic circling, and just, I got to do it again because I completely missed the point. Got to do it again and completely missed the point. Where you can actually understand these things, and whether or not you have an out-of-body experience, because a lot of people, what if I don't ever have an experience? It's like, well, you don't have to actually do the things that put you on the path to achieve the things that will accelerate your spiritual purpose here. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it totally regresses back to the simplicity of a childlike state. And furthermore, as you say, the birth point, we call it a point of no return, where you detach and attach.
Love it. Love it.
And so that again refers back to the bellows. So it's a completion and then a birthing, a completion and a birthing, and a completion and a birthing, which would refer to, and that charge you and I got right now is that said evidence. That's now. That's that aha moment. That's we are right dead on center, and we are preaching to a choir, but furthermore, we are not. We are showing evidence of this through the mastery and all that. I mean, how would you put it in relation to this extensive knowledge and understanding that you have put into words that are now, in some cases, for many people, their own version of a Bible to help them decipher their own reality. How would you refer to that? Are you channeling it? Are you just knowing? How do you remember who you are through this? Because, I mean, this information is incredibly powerful and insightful for anybody that is looking to find an answer.
Well, for me, the way that so you're asking me how I come up with information. So for me, I'm very particular about the information because I think it's so important that the information is unadulterated and absolutely not me and coming straight from the source. And so from the beginning, I always made sure I only wrote exactly what I saw, exactly what I heard, even if it didn't make sense. Because sometimes it's like, you said what? Because, I wrote it down exactly the way they said it. And, when I first wrote some of the first books, I had all these boxes because I was like commentarying. I was like, I think it means this. And I went back and I took out everything that was my thoughts. And I kept only, this is what I saw. This is what I heard. And that's what I've done with all of my books, because it's so important to me that it's not me, it's what I was shown in these out-of-body experiences. And so I don't channel, I don't do this through a psychic gift. It's my out-of-body experiences, my mystical experiences. And I'm very, very particular about it has to be only what I saw, what I heard, and I bring it back. It's very similar to, well, it's actually not similar to a Swedenborg because he actually does a lot of self-commentary, but but it's to me, it's very important that I keep it very, very clear on that, because I was always very concerned about getting my thoughts into it. And then what's happened, because I have been doing it for 40 years, I now have this big body of work, big body of experiences, and all of it comes together. And I have an understanding now of how this all works and comes together. And so like in this particular series that I'm just releasing, I'm compiling, this is what the experiences have shown me up to this point, you see. So it's actually a great question, because a lot of times people don't ask that. And I think it's really important, because for me, that was so important. There's no channeling here. There's none of my opinions. This is what I saw, this is what I heard, and then you decide for yourself what to make of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's really important, because I am not, I think it's just really important that it needs to have that purity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we have come to, what's that old song? The back, what is it? Boys to Men. We have come to the end of the road. But in reality, I mean, this is really out with the old, in with the new. Enough of this just someone solidifying an absolute by going, this is the physical, or this is the spiritual, or this is the emotional. Furthermore, this is the formula. And so this comes through the lens of physics or science or neurology, biology, psychology. These are very limited. Now,
Right.
what the audience needs to understand about the mastery of what you're sharing is this is exploration. This is an experiential moment that can be, if you follow the guidance of your teaching through your own experience, people can replicate and repeat these very experiences through this mastery. And that is
true. And there are many, many people who do. And I think that's important for people to realize that they do. And it's not, this is a path that requires a lot of us, because it's a path of purification. And I just want to point that out, because so when we enter this path, we go into this process knowing that we will be corrected, we will be chastised, we will be shown where we are incorrect in our thinking, and what we think is true might not be true, and we'll be shown that. And so we're going to go through the purifying fires, and so expect to be changed. Go in with the understanding that I want to know the truth, even if it's different from what I think it is right now. I want to know the truth about my own soul, even if it's hard to look at, because you will look at it and you will see it energetically. So you will see the darkness within yourself. And one of the great things about this is one of the reasons why it accelerates us is, we can spend 20 or 30 years having bad habits, right? But if we are taken into the energy of that and see it and experience it and feel it, we come back from that. We have this remorse and we have this understanding of it, and we can change it a lot quicker. You can do in a couple of weeks what you could spend 20, 30 years, going over and arguing with yourself about, if you actually get into the energetic truth of it. And that's why it's such an important path, because you're accelerating the karmic purification, the purification of all the things that you may not understand. And that's what you're doing, because what are you doing here? We are doing what it takes to bring us closer to the all-holy God. And that means we have to remove those things that are keeping us away. And that means we're going to have to remove all that is not serving that purpose, which all the things that are not holy within us. And that includes things we do, but also things we think, things we believe that are contradictory to that goal. And so this is how we accelerate it. But the goal is worth it. Do we want to sit still and just karmically circle, turn around, go back and do the same thing over and over again? Or do we want to say, no, I stop here and I'm starting anew, and I am accelerating this because I want this lifetime to be the last here, so that I can have that new birth when I cross from here and go to the next level. A lot of the the Hindu saints like Paramahamsa Yogananda and Vivekananda, they all talked about this stuff. Sri Ramakrishna, Catholic saints talked about it. The Kabbalists talk about this. Sufis, it's a big thing in the Sufis. Rumi talks about it all the time. I'm a big fan of Rumi. Rumi is, really cool. But, this is not something that is new. One of the things I refer to a lot in a lot of my books are the ancient sacred texts. And I was told early on to gather the ancient sacred texts from the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and ascetics from all time. And I have this massive library, and I utilized a lot of their quotes. And why? Why is that so important? Those people are the ones who found all the keys to crossing from this realm into the next. And when they left for the last time, and their words, which were the key, the golden keys, were left behind in those ancient sacred texts. And for the most part, a lot of people totally ignore them. But what happens when we go back and we glean the wisdoms from those texts, it becomes what I actually saw in an out-of-body experience many times, which is this beautiful staircase from earth to heaven, which consists of all those ancient sacred texts piled one upon the other, the staircase, which is all of their realizations, each step that leads us from where we are here in physicality to where we can be in infinity. If we just don't forget that those secrets, those keys are all around us.
Amen to that. Amen. You know, it really does. It comes back to something that we talk about within Taoism. It's the selfishness that reveals the selflessness through the
Yes.
sacrifice. And that
Love
sacrifice
that. That is so exactly what I have been shown.
and the fear of the human being to sacrifice anything, to have something in lack of, is the very thing that you need to move into to be fully realized. And
Yes.
that is the limitation of the mortal self. We refer to it as remind the man mortality is real, and furthermore, let the man who's never left the village, let him know he's seen the world as it resides within him. And
Yes.
so these are all evidence-based wisdom teaching that shows us this effect. And that unified state is where you take immortality, as we speak of it from the alchemical process, and we crystallize it into a material form so you can see miracles, mystical, magical epiphanies that synchronize you to a state of awareness so you can experience what that is as unified. And that is the incredible insight and mastery that you teach, is helping people remember that, because that return, being whole is healing. Healing in definition is being whole. And then once you complete, this is where we talk deep within the text of Taoism. We talk about the cycle of 9, the most potent, powerful point of ascension, from that transmutation of the yin and yang into a numerology. And that state of 9, the count of 9, is completion. And then you start again. So within every count of 9 in the present moment, you will be able to return to whole at will. This is the said evidence of that mysticism and magic that resides in that. And furthermore, if you want to bust out any polymath that wants to decipher the code, 9 can be 1 or 0. It can be all things or nothing at the same time. And people go, whoa, okay, that's kind of makes sense to me. I don't need to understand the mathematical sums, but that's probably why you guys always work in the number 9 in relation to your teaching within Taoism. That is the highest point. And that is the concentration of what we call the diamond, which is said evidence of absorbing the riches in this material state.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, in my mystical and out-of-body experiences, we went through those numbers. So, you know, in order to achieve the karmic purification, you had to go through the first 7 stages, which was getting through all of the karmic purification and the purification of the masculine and the feminine parts of the soul. And then you had to enter into the 8. And the 8, you had to go through the initiations into the mysteries and the rites of passage. And you had to go and retrieve the book of the 8s, which is the book of the immortals. And then going beyond the book of the 8s is going into the 9, which is going into the completion stages of the mystical. And there's so many infinities beyond that 9 and within that 9. And so I completely
the reflection of the 9, I would just say this, the reflection of the 9 is the unification of the 8.
Okay.
So you merge the 2 together, 6 and 9 as well. Oh, that looks like an infinity sign. Oh, what are the chances of that?
And in the out-of-body travel state, the infinity sign is utilized to teach us about the backward and the forward flow, and how, you know, you move forward and backwards, and how you have to choose between, are you going to move towards death, towards life? And if you choose towards death, that's towards destruction, deconstruction, and moving towards life is towards construction and creation. You know, you mentioned too the great cosmic mother, and I had this beautiful vision where I was shown that beautiful, this was in relation to the Tao. I was having this beautiful experience, and I was given the title, The Tao of Mysticism, to this book. And then I was taken into this beautiful, it was on a tabletop. It was like a puzzle, but it was like 3-dimensional, and it had the entire cycle of the soul. And I went through the whole thing, and it went through all these things all the way to the end. And at the end, there was all these things. And at the end, the great crucifixion of Christ and his ascension. And then there was something beyond it. And I was taken into the divine feminine. And it was just so amazing. And then it was this whole thing of the crucifixion is the how we recreate after the false man is no more, because we have to create what will then become and what will be after that phase. And it was just so beautiful. I can't even put it in the proper perspective of what it was. It was astonishing. And when you mentioned that, I thought of that because it was just so awesome. And it was more than I can express really in terms of what it really was. But it was just so important to understand the crucifixion was like the end, but it was more. There was more beyond it. There was more beyond it. And that was creation beyond.
Right. It's again a new beginning.
Yes.
Like, and you exhibit this constantly. The symbiosis of yin and yang is evident.
Yes.
Within everything.
Yes.
And power is shown to you on a macro pico nanosecond. You are able to capture that. And that vesica point, if you capture that and hold that resonance, then you can exhibit miracles. Then you can enter into these states that we speak of that are not transitory, they're not delusion, they're permanence, and they're access that once repeatable, you refine that as an access to a higher state and you maintain it. It's like this is where you discover heaven on earth. This is more. One of my teachers uses an incantation that's very clear. His name is Jade Emperor. A power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. And mic drop. And you get this, you feel the visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response of that because the words are imbued with that unified state. And you go, whoa, hang on a second.
Yeah.
This is remembering, because once you are able to look into what you believe is the abyss, no, it's the void, the primordial mother that will show the reflection of perfection in this material state. And your evidence will be that charge you and I got right now. Aha, we are here. Touchdown. And that's the power of what we're speaking of. And mastering states of awareness that go beyond the human physical flesh is that very evidence. Because, I mean, we always refer to this within Taoism. If you have to learn it, you do not know it. If you know it, you don't have to learn it. You're experiencing it. It is not the finite, bankrupt, corrupted mind of the intellect, which constantly will look for more and never find evidence. This is, if you are thinking, you are not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling this very moment. And that goes beyond any information. And that's where your experiences and your teaching instantly show someone. When you look into the knowledge, when you look into the information, it's nothing more than words until otherwise noted, until it reflects back to you this evidence of this embodiment. And now you're like, whoa, okay, now I am self-realized. And through this teaching, I can find that and return home to who I am.
Yes. Yes, very much so. Yes.
This is the magical stuff that you've spent 40 years. I've spent close to that. I keep being reminded. you keep saying 30, and you're like, when did you start? Oh, 36 years ago. Oh, okay. All right. But time and space is just nothing more than that. It's I'm referred to as the master void of time and space because it just is so infantile. It's so distractionary. It's like, come on, let's get on with it. Doesn't exist. And so what would you suggest as a seeker of this incredible knowledge coming across your library of how to incredible knowledge, wisdom teaching within your 27 books currently that you've published? What would be the first course of action for someone to go, I want more? What is the fastest way for me to see that said evidence? And how do I get it? Which book do I go to? What's the appropriate one that's going to give me the starting?
Well, we recently released the complete, out-of-body travel and mysticism set, which has 27 books. But, I do have about 137 books that I've written over the years. The one that I would recommend if you're new would be to start with a really simple book called Come to Wisdom's Door, How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience. It's very short, probably, under 100 pages. And then a little bit larger one called The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. Those are good places to start. I do have a page at the website, which is the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation at outofbodytravel.org. You can look there on the menu and it'll say new. And if you click there, it gives you all of the recommendations, including the films, the books, the things that, and a couple of interviews too, that you might want to listen to that are good for new readers. But those two are the first two. And then after that, there's a book called The Hammer of Mysticism, which is going to give you a lot of good terms and definitions to understand that a lot of readers have told me that helped them. So I put that in there with the new stuff for people. But, a lot of people are also enjoying this new series, which I kind of created to help people with, who are kind of new. And so feel free to experiment with that. But the Mysteries of the Redemption is really the starting point for most people. Another thing that I think is important for people to know is all of our books are downloadable for free. So you can come to the site, you can download the books for free, you can watch our films for free. We have music, we have meditations, we have classes, lots of classes. We have lots of seminars that I've got. And also, you can also get it obviously on Kindle, paperback, Audible, and all those things, so you can do it that way as well. But you can play around and download, and then, and if you have a particular format you prefer, then feel free to purchase. But you can go to the site and read whatever you want. So those things are really good. I think that it really helps people to watch The Grand Phases of the Soul, that film. And we also have a film called How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience. And those are both good films for people to also watch while they're reading those two books, and when they, add that third book. And you can always pop me an email because I always answer. And if you have so yeah, I think that that's where I'd start. We do have that YouTube channel. You can watch all our classes. We have a class on the how to have an out-of-body experience that you can watch. So lots of options.
Do you at any point put any sort of like program that you might offer for someone presently or in the future where they can follow in depth someone teaching them this technique?
Can you repeat that? Because I think my thing flipped.
Yeah. No. Are you in presently or in the future? Do you have a program someone can follow that is a step by step, not just reading a book, but perhaps maybe you have a tutorial of someone? I think you mentioned YouTube. So is that on YouTube where someone can follow that tutorial and actually be given the necessary ingredients to acquire this? experience?
Yeah, I mean, we have it on YouTube in the How to Have an Out of Body Experience film. We also have there's quite a few things that get people ready in Come to Wisdom's Door, How to Have an Out of Body Experience. I also have a very small little book called Astral. Let me check the title. It's basically Astral Projection Made Easy is what I think it is. It's like a little devotional, and what it does is it takes all these steps and lays them out so that you can focus on each step, one day at a time or 1 week at a time, and just kind of put a focus on it. That one is also helpful. A lot of people seem to like that. I also have a CD that you can get either by itself or in a collection with other CDs called The Frequency of Otara, which a lot of people say has helped them and worked for them, which was a technique given to me by the angels to help people get into the vibrational state. You obviously can also hear it on YouTube, and you can try that on YouTube. In the new book that I just released called The Complete Out-of-Body Travel and Astral Projection Manual, it does have quite a few of the techniques and meditations you can try when you're just beginning with out-of-body travel, and stuff that you can start doing right away as well. And so you can do that. In the other book that follows it, Advanced Out-of-Body Travel, has a lot more as well. So depending on where you are, if you're just beginning, start with the Complete Out-of-Body Travel. If you're an advanced traveler, you might want the second one. You might want both of them. If you're just starting, you might want to just do that because it's going to take you the whole way. And I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything, because we do have so much. The out-of-body travel film is available, but there's also this out-of-body travel seminar, which is probably about 8 or 9 hours that you can watch. So it's pretty intensive on the subject. And there's also a lot of interviews on the website. So probably just about 80 to 100. No, there's a lot more actually. I think it's more like 150 interviews with anyone from Coast to Coast AM, Midnight in the Desert. I've been around a long time. I had an interview with Art Bell back in the day, believe it or not.
I'll get started with Art Bell. I'm out in Nevada, and he came to me probably 6 months ago with Dolores Cannon, and we're just going on and on and on and on. And he gave me this intricate description of his imminent demise that was not biological, which I find quite interesting. I'm not going to just disclose what that is, but he was telling me that I was drawn to a very short-lived life, not with my own voluntary admission, put it that way. And then Dolores was going on about more information about her training and her teaching, and how the practitioners are not dropping into the somnambulistic state at a deeper level to truly access this super consciousness, or whatever she called it. And I'm always open. I have the lights on, and I get spirits coming to me on a daily, and I don't mind having a conversation with them. But then I go for the evidence. I'm like, okay, you're churning on and on and on. Now let me go and take a closer look at this. I'm not saying you're full of shit, or let me examine. And I ended up having probably a dozen of her practitioners on this channel, and all of them are like, holy shit. And I said, I was told that she would never channel out again, or some type of myth that they had. Yet all their practitioners were like, that's her. She's absolutely going on and on about this. I'm like, okay, well, that's exciting. I'm not going to sit down. I mean, the last energy that I actually did that with was Bruce Lee, which was extremely informative. And it happened to be on his anniversary, of his 50th anniversary of his death. And so I went deep into the ins and outs of what was a curse or a karmic thing that went on throughout his family. and the entity that he was entertaining, that he ultimately did not want to participate in this looshing of this energy, and ultimately it ended in his imminent demise, and he was immortalized. The energy was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you this legendary status of celebrity, immortalized, but not alive to experience it. Wow. It's just fascinating, this type of stuff. So yeah, Art Bell's an interesting one. I didn't even know who he was until he started coming to me, and everyone's like, are you kidding me? You literally live out in the desert, not so far away from his actual home. And I'm like, really? And sure enough, I went down there and I got the address, and it's like, yep, that's him. That's his place. He has this huge, like, antenna thing coming out of his place that at some point, I guess he was transmitting a radio station.
Yes.
Did I know that's where you were mentioning the coast to coast thing? And I thought, you can't.
Yeah, he was doing Midnight in the Desert from there for, and I think for decades, and then yeah. So I don't know anything about the circumstances of his passing, but yeah.
He shares, and it can stay there. I'm not getting on anyone's soapbox to start, peddling some type of, like, in my opinion, a conspiracy theory. But hey, listen, I'm always up to listening, and then I do my own research and determine whether this is some other entity that's commandeering my attention with the avatar of this individual. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I do have some books on in the Mystic Knowledge series on ghosts and lost souls, spirit guides, angels and demons, and speaking of ghosts and lost souls, the guidance that I would give on that is that it's really important to always remember that when people pass from this realm, they don't become wiser or have more knowledge than they had on Earth, and so we don't want to give them any kind of spiritual status that they don't actually have. So what you're probably dealing with Art Bell, if that's what's happening, or with a Mr. Lee or whatever, is just some souls who are doing something, could be lost soul, whatever. And there's all kinds of stuff that we do to help lost souls to cross over, help them work through their issues so that they can cross over into the light. But actually, it's often kind of like almost a distraction to focus on the consequences of their life and their death too much, because we always want to come back to the transformation, the spiritual process, the spiritual perfection of the soul. And if they're not doing that, it means they're lost and they're confused, and they're distracting you, wasting your time. You see what I'm saying? And
well, I mean, exorcisms are my bag, and I've been doing for over 30 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
One of the things that I was taught from my monastery back in Longshan in China, where I was a priest. So one of the biggest things is exorcism. So
okay.
The founder of that specific monastery was an exorcist badass, and that's one of the rituals and a very deep nature of understanding in the training for that particular lineage that I'm ordained in. So it's like, that earthbound energy, absolutely 100%. But there's also evidence of this sort of disdain for humanity that presents itself when someone does take someone else's life. What's commandeering the attention of this material state that would even identify and be detached from empathy? And that's a much more sinister and ominous sort of energy you need to be aware of. Furthermore, when they're trapped there, they are earthbound. They're the sum of their life experiences, and they have no more value. That's it. It's like you're not going to get insight from somebody who has yet to cross over, because that's just what they're experiencing. They're going to give you hey, guess what? I don't believe in this, I believe in that. And I am no longer present to physically occupy the material state. And so
Right.
the dialogue that I have with these energies is the sum of their life experiences. And in those particular three situations outside of, or two situations, the third one, Dolores, was, absolutely complications from too much of this yin evidence. And then it transmuted into a yang material state that ultimately was a short-lived existence. So, you go so deep into the abyss of somnambulistic sort of like self-realization, which can present itself as yin. And then what happens is the lack of attention to this anchor will reside in a transmuted effect that will ultimately shorten your duration of this physical body. And so, boom, you're gone. That doesn't have to be the end of anything, because it's not. Yet many people are attached to what they've lost. So most of the loved ones are the ones that this individual is observing the outcome of this physical death. What have they lost? Not the individuals lost their own life force. It's, oh my goodness, I lost my mom, my best friend, my sister. Yes, this self-loathing is evident within the humanistic pathway of, pain and suffering. Yet
Right.
ultimately there should be a celebration of the rebirth. And, most of these energies don't. I come across several that have been tricked into, the idea that unaliving themselves on a YouTube channel, whatever you want to call it, is an answer to their oppression, because it goes from oppression, depression to possession within the space I'm in. And so then you start getting these thoughts in your head that are clearly not yours. They never were, but it sounds like a good idea because it would save a lot of time and effort and resolve a lot of issues if I was just led to this very short-lived existence. And so then they come back and they're knocking on my door going, I was only joking. I just wanted a little bit more empathy. I wanted someone to understand me, to love me. And this is just a very sad event that takes place, because, you have to have that compassion. It comes with the human condition to the human being.
Right.
Is the superpower. There are all these facets of these emotional states that are so potent and powerful, but if they're commandeered in a state that is very material, you're just going to be in turmoil all the time, pain and suffering all the time, and never find resolve and never find healing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But exercising entities is a past favorite of mine. I haven't done it in about 10 years, and all of a sudden I said that. I go, I haven't come across this energy, and then all of a sudden I got a dozen, just one after another. And
I do have I have some books for those who are interested in spiritual warfare, angels and demons, and also we actually have a 2-film project on spiritual warfare, angels and demons, the preparation and the combat. So we have a 2-film series on dealing with that kind of stuff, and I know there's more. And I know that we in the current series of books, I put out one on spiritual warfare and also astral self-defense. But spiritual warfare is kind of what you're talking about here. And so, there's a lot in the mystical. When you're in the out-of-body travel state, you have to learn to deal with the things like that, the possessions, the dark side, the demonic, the lower realms, the purgatorial, the hellish realms, of which there are many. And that's a big part of what I explain and show people through my experiences in my books.
No, they're very real. It starts with the same belief system.
Exactly.
Right? If you become more and more entrained into that belief system, they become more realized.
Yes.
And show themselves, and they are very, very tangible. When
one thing that you've made me aware of that I didn't know that is very interesting is that in Taoism that you have exorcists. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so that's very interesting to me. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. We
that's
can go over that further if you want to. It's
very,
a whole big thing. Not today, but at some point in the future, if you're interested, because I mean, this is all part of a much bigger scope of Taoist
yeah.
magic. And the Taoist magic, it starts with the seed of the alchemy, and then
Ah,
you really start to merge these energies on a very tangible level. And Taoist alchemy that reflects in the magic is predicated on the karmic model of the human condition, and that's how we drop the groundwork, and we solidify things that are diminished or in excess through this unified purification. And that's how you create things that would be only in your mind and not possible, right down to a full stop. You can alter this fabric very carefully and very quickly, but you must be mindful of the outcome and what that comes with it within the substance of the human condition, because that's where people fall short. It's like, well, what does that mean? It means that you look at me and go, I'm not afraid. And in the back of your mind, you are shit scared. This will help with unraveling of a very diminished return for most people, because they're telling themselves what they want to hear. They're not telling themselves the truth. And they master that truth through the actual knowing. As you solidify the energetics, you become whole. And
yes,
so as you ascend, the evidence of that is the trappings of selflessness and servitude, and you
yes.
fear nothing. You are everything. And
That's
so,
very, very similar to my experiences as well. And you mentioned the alteration, and a lot of what I wrote about was the alteration pathway, which is how you have to alter things in the energetic spheres and the management realms where things are forming from our thoughts and our works and deeds, but have not hit the ground yet, so to speak. And you work in those realms before they hit the ground, to try to prevent bad outcomes and things for souls. Very similar to what I've experienced in the out of body travel state. So that's very interesting to me.
oh yeah, it's another said evidence. That's the
Uh-huh.
evidence, it becomes more and more profound as you pick up all the crumbs, my
Yeah,
dear.
yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. Very interesting. It's been really fun to talk to you, and I've really appreciated our dialogue. I mean, very, 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 very interesting. And hearing that you trained in a monastery in China, it's very fascinating. Um, you know,
Well, I mean, at a much deeper level, you have all sorts of individuals that come to that monastery for casting of talismans and specifics, casting of magic. And you would be shocked at the list of people or individuals or entities or groups and communities that want that harnessing of that potency. And it comes with it a very fine line, because what you're asking for will have a, an effect within this material state that will present itself as a condition of that
right.
and that remedy will reveal itself. But with that, there is a condition, and that will be met with some form of currency. There will be an energy merging, and depending upon how deep you are in that fear, it really doesn't work out too well for you. It becomes very problematic, and exciting. It's exciting, but there is no room for telling yourself what you want to hear or faking it till you make it, because most people have these energetic awakenings, and that's all it is. It's just like, oh, now I feel energy. That's great. That means absolutely nothing. You're just more prone to being led down the rabbit hole of a very delusional state, and
Yeah,
you're feeling all the effects and the intricacies of these energy potentials, and you
yeah,
need to master it. It's like, it means nothing if you just activate the energy body and you're not solidifying and fortifying it, where you what we call burn it into an actual tangible realization. So it goes deep within the physical flesh. It's as tangible as this flesh. That's the whole immortality crystallized as material. And
Yeah.
that's what we talk about. And that's how you can then harness these things. And depending upon where you're at, it will present itself within yin and yang. And if you are in a certain place where you're still controlled by the human condition, it will see itself as good and evil, and it will show itself. People are like, well, how many spirits in it? There are infinite amounts of spirits and energies and entities in this space. And if you want to put any or imbue any of your attention, which is the currency, your attention is the most valuable potency of this experience, then if you believe in the boogeyman, you believe in Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, that energy is very palpable. I can have you experience it. It's very real. Now, how it forms into a crystalline material state may start within the dark, deep seeds and bowels of Wes Craven, who created Freddy Krueger. I mean, that guy was on a one-way ticket to, as we would say, hell, and that's okay. You know, it showed itself transmuted through his physical flesh, and he unfortunately suffered a very long and miserable ending that could have been very quick, very efficient, very completing to returning to whole and a birth, but it was holding on for dear life, which then shows itself within this material, and I believe it was cancer or something like that, which is probably one of the most hideous, horrible ways to go out. But it starts with those seeds, and you start to form it, and you feed it, and it percolates, and it grows like this, petri dish of just juju. If it is, then it will show you. And oopsie. And I mean, it comes back to someone like Steve Jobs. That was a classic, right? He had always shown himself. And I personally, I met him a few times, and he'd shown himself as, this innovator and this great guy. And personally, at face value, personality-wise, I never experienced any of that. And then it started to transmute within his physical body, and he was claimed Buddhist and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until the very last moment as he transitioned, and if you witness this from anybody moving into a new beginning, you will watch the energy centers just shut down like light switches as it starts to move out through the physical body, up through what we call the Bai Hui. This is a very clear transformation. And his last words were, "Oh my goodness, it was so much brighter than I thought." Yeah. You could have had that right now.
His last words.
Right?
That was his last. I didn't know that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And he could have had that while he was still breathing in this material.
Right.
Yet he was just faking it till you make it. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a this. I'm a that. Blah blah. Yeah. Okay. I believe you. Yep. Well, the proof is always in the pudding. I always do the Pepsi challenge with anybody. I'll do the taste test with anybody on this stuff. Show me what it is that you are claiming to possess, and you show me yours, I'll show you mine, because there is the ability to acquire that state, and it is instantaneous, which resorts back to my mother was a classic one. 20 years ago, I had her at a channeling workshop, and one of the students got commandeered by several entities, and I watched them start to oscillate and merge in and out of her physical body as she's supposedly channeling something of a higher ascended state. And then I moved the other student that was questioning her out of the way, and I looked at her and I was like, "Oh, let's have a conversation." Then it went sideways, and she unraveled and was thrown across the room, and my mother was like, "Oh shit, this is real." Yes, it is real. And how deep you want to go is up to you. Yeah. And on that note, my dear friend, I imagine we have come to the end of the road, and this has been an incredible conversation.
Yeah, it's been great. I really enjoyed our conversation and having a chance to get to know you and, kind of compare notes and compare paths and, see how similar things, come together and intersect. Really awesome,
I know it's just further validation and self-realization, and that excuse me, is what excites me every day. I wake up to that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, another experience that reconfirms what we already know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm going to put your social sphere and interweb under this podcast. I'm going to have people go out and experience what it is that you offer students, disciples, 126s, and subscribers. And 126s, don't worry, it's not a cult of indoctrination. It's an app that I developed that takes you from zero to a hero. And you hit play, and all of a sudden you've had 8 pina coladas, a full body massage, and 10 days in the Bahamas. This is part of your self-realization. So you just get deep into the visceral effects. So you can start mastering breaking basement level awareness starts with your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And when you get that sort of mastery, this is where you're off to the races. And most people just want that. They want to just, the incessant noise that comes with the finite mind is a problem to many people. And they don't want any more pain and suffering. They want to take their emotions, their emotion and feeling, and move it off like an icon on a computer screen. This is what you master when you use this app. So just a side note, I want them to go out and access your books. You can download it on your website. You have a YouTube channel that'll give you a point check experience on how to acquire an out-of-body experience. I think you mentioned 9 hours. You had a tutorial on how to get it done.
Yeah.
And I applaud anyone that needs to go out and check this out and make it happen. And it could happen even faster than that just by this conversation, because we have been showing evidence of this union throughout the oscillation between our energies throughout this whole conversation, which has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. It's been
Is there
great.
anything you want to share with the audience in closing? Because you're on this 27 book complete access to a zero to a hero within the spiritual world and out-of-body experience.
Yeah, definitely go to the website, outofbodytravel.org. You can download any of our books for free. Remember, start with Come to Wisdom's Door and the Mysteries of the Redemption. And we have that new series of books that has the complete out-of-body travel and astral projection guides. A new release coming. It's going to be the 11th book in the Mysteries of the Redemption series called To Gather the Winds of Heaven. Keep an eye out for that coming soon, probably in the next couple weeks. And so see you there. If you have any questions, email me, Marilynn Hughes at outofbodytravel.org.
And in closing, my dear friend, what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
My definition of spiritual consciousness would be, ironically, my definition of spiritual consciousness is it resides in the center of silence.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Hundreds of podcasts never heard the same answer as I should not, because we're all facets of the same diamond of perfection. You say tomato, I say tomato. I love that one. Ooh, I'm going to have to take that one, I think. Yes. So thank you again, my dear friend, for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our time together. And so thank you.
Yeah. And with that, I'm going to thank you. I'm going to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I'm going to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master Sun Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.